Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever what time of day it happens to be that you are joining the Tattooed Teacher podcast. On this episode, I've got the amazing Rachel Ballantyne, much like Valentine, but just with a B. Rachel, thank you for joining me. Just before we kick off, I'm going to give you a little bit of a bio just to share with our guests who you are, or some of the things that you've done, not so much who you are, we'll find that out as we go, but some of the things that you've done thus far. You have been an English teacher, you have been a student and still are, and almost have completed the amazing journey that is a doctorate. So, congratulations on almost getting that done. But you are a business founder and CEO of Edify, a tutoring business. You are a CPD content writer, a consultant, a keynote speaker, and probably a myriad of other things that we'll find out more about. So, Rachel, welcome to the Tattoo Teacher podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
Now, you've completed all these things and completing and doing, and you've got this drive, excuse me, drive for education. And it sounds like not only education for students but also for teachers. Um, but where did this passion start from? What's your why? How did you come to be the Rachel that we're chatting with today?
So, in 2013, I ventured to Borneo with Rally International and I worked helping build a kindergarten in Abinkoi, which is a very remote village in the Bornean rainforest in Sabah. That's where my heart for education sort of came into play. Um, and then ever since then, I've been doing various um, sort of jobs that would enable me to spend time educating young people. I've got my own young people now. I've got Eddie and Ollie who are 5 and 3, and Eddie just started school. And so earlier this year, I started thinking about how I could better support him and spend more time with him, because the kind of the cruel irony of being a teacher is that you spend your time teaching other people's children and not being able to attend assemblies, nativities, parents' evenings of your own children. And I didn't that just didn't work for me. So I made the move, and at the beginning of May, end of April this year, I established Edify. So for the last few years, I've been supporting a charity called TZ Rising, which is a charity based in Tanzania who support 25 young women, empowering them, supporting them to access education, to completely change their lives. So since then, I've done a few slightly mad charitable acts where I hiked from London to Brighton last year on the Freedom Hike, raised a few £1,000s. I did the London Marathon this year, also for TZ Rising, and I climbed Kilimanjaro this summer. But I got to base camp, and then which is 5,000 meters above sea level, which is still higher than any peak in Europe. However, I had altitude sickness, so I didn't reach the summit. So obviously, I'll just have to go try again in a couple of years' time. That's the only option.
Absolutely. Wow. Like that is so much. And I mean, being a teacher, full-time job, being a parent, full-time job, you're doing, but and then you are giving so much of what would be your free time, where teachers go, you know what, I'm going to put my feet up, I'm going to sit on the beach, I'm going to do this. So it seems that the to give to the betterment of others is where your heart is. It's to go, you know what, I'm I have what I have, and I'm blessed to have these things, but I'm going to share them with others who are less fortunate or don't have the opportunities, or just happen to be born in a different country to you and I.
I think you're right, and I think so many people um have the opportunities that so many other people just would absolutely dream of. And um I just I feel like I've been so fortunate to have all of the opportunities that I've had. I've had a lovely upbringing. I went to a brilliant girls' grammar school in Kent, um, and I think so many tutoring companies are doing so many good things. And this year we've invested, financially and time and energy into creating our safeguarding charter. Now, our safeguarding charter is a celebration of what tutoring businesses are already doing to protect their families and their stakeholders, like their tutors.
Yeah.
But it's also empowering other tutoring businesses to come forward and invest in their safeguarding practices. Their tutoring as an industry is pretty unregulated. You don't
Yes.
have to have any qualifications. You don't have to have any training. You don't even have to be safeguard trained or DBS checked. So what my associates and I are trying to develop is a sustainable onboarding system for our tutors and our clients to make sure that we have safeguarding at the core of everything that we're doing. I think one thing that's kind of overlooked a lot in tutoring is that we don't just work with clever kids to get good grades. We often work with some of the most vulnerable children in society, and children who have really been negatively affected by their educational experience.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are hugely vulnerable, and neither parents, nor families, nor students, nor tutors necessarily know how to protect themselves and each other. So earlier, a couple of months ago, I completed my designated safeguard lead training. So we as a company now have a DSL, which is me, but we're also ensuring that all of our tutors are DBS checked. We're ensuring they're all safeguard trained. We have the safer onboarding recruitment consultant on board to make sure that everything is as safe and as thought through as possible, just to protect the people who are our everything. So
Absolutely. That's amazing. That I mean, as an educator here in Australia, we have our teacher registration, which then does our what we call a child protection certification. So that they do all our background checks, they do police
mhm.
checks, they do all those sort of things. If you're a volunteer in a school, you have to apply, do your do a small little thing, fill out the forms, let them go and do that. But as far as I know, like you said, as tutors go, yeah, anyone can create a Facebook page and go, I'm a tutor,
Yeah.
and which most people, and you would think, go, oh well, they must be a safe person, they must like, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. But it's fantastic that the well-being of not only your students that come into the care under your business, but also the families and the tutors themselves, that they are being, everyone is being protected, because as we know, things can go wrong, things can be misconstrued. But if all the risk mitigation is put in place, it makes everyone feel more comfortable.
No, 100%. And I think, safeguarding is that sort of thing that's super quiet and in the background, and that you just hope is there
Yeah,
until it needs to be there. And uh, that's that's what people don't understand necessarily, is that it's like an insurance policy. You hope to God that you're never going to need to claim on your insurance, but you still need the insurance in place to protect you. And it's the same, my children are 5 and 3. There's no chance that my 5-year-old would ever let me teach him anything, because obviously he knows best.
yeah,
But
he does.
yeah, he doesn't, right? Um, However, to think that I would let him be alone in a room with a complete stranger who I met on the internet, essentially, and that I'm paying to spend time with my child, it it just doesn't sit right with me, and I don't think it should sit right with any parent, logically, parents should be asking to see the teachers or the tutor's credentials. They should be knowing where to seek advice and who to speak to if they do have a concern. Um, and if tutoring companies don't have that in place, do parents or tutors even know who to talk to? And a lot of the students we work with are international. So we have a huge group of Chinese students that we work with. We've got some students in India. We actually have one in Australia also. And it's so interesting to find out the different jurisdictions in the different countries, because we have an amazing chemistry tutor called Rose who lives in India. Now she's tutoring one of our students in China. What happens if she encounters a safeguarding concern or has a concern? If she didn't come and speak to me or one of my team, um, she wouldn't necessarily know what to do in that situation. So, and a lot of the tutors and the students and families we work with are neurodivergent. So, what we're doing in the new year is we're putting together a platform um, with some safeguarding consultants to make the safeguard training accessible. So we'll have like a 10-minute scenario-based vignette, and then we'll break it down into its constituent parts to explain in a really accessible sort of podcast sort of way how to deal in that situation, how to conduct, as professionally as possible in that scenario. Because, you don't know what you don't know. So,
Exactly. Yeah, I've just recently started. Earlier this year, I started working in a school that is just for ASD plus students.
yeah.
And I've been in education over 20 years, and we have, we've always had students like, neurotypical students. We're obviously very neurotypical students, but we've also had a lot of neurodiverse students within our mainstream classrooms, and it's just like, well, I've just got to teach because I've got 25 kids, and honestly, a teacher, as you know, just doesn't have time to invest the time that is needed to create the resources or whatever it is to actually meet the specific needs of that child. It's not that we don't want to; it's just we physically can't. And so now, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and now it fully immersed in that environment. I look back at some of the classes that I had, and I've gone, that kid, all I needed to do was that. I know why they were doing that. I know why she was doing that. If I had have just go and, just walk around the classroom, that's not a problem. It's not going to annoy me. Just walk and allow them to do that. But, there's all these rules and regulations. And yeah, it's so, I think that sort of focus is so needed, because I think it's also becoming more socially aware. People are going, oh, hold on, that's why I feel like that. And then all of a sudden, I was talking to some friends the other night, and, one of their friends, like, his life was changed because at 55, he went and got a diagnosis, went and got some medication, and he's like, I'm a new man. Like, why has this taken so long? So, and what you're doing now already is that, like, that training. It seems as though you're on the front foot for everything. You are working within your environment, but you're looking at what's 3, 4, 5 steps ahead.
Um, well, thank you. I think that's well identified. Um, I think we've all experienced education differently. We all have very varied, some experiences, some good, some bad, some mediocre. But when it comes to our children and the people that we work with, I don't feel like there is any room for mis missed opportunity or a scenario occurring where one of the young people or one of the tutors that we work with feels unprotected and unsafe. And I couldn't do what I do and sleep at night, not knowing that I hadn't invested as much as I could in protecting the people around me. Um, it baffles me how. Anyway, so that's kind of my motivation for doing it.
Yeah, because
Um,
sorry, no, you finish your thought, and then I'll come
no,
back to
I'm finished. Yeah.
it. No, I was going to say because I guess I'm a parent. All my children are grown up; they're all adults now. I've got a grandbaby now.
Ah.
But as a parent, when you become a parent, you definitely get a new lens to look through, and you start thinking about, oh, hold on, and especially as an educator, you go, well, yeah, I'm teaching, and whatever, I'm just teaching these kids, and then you have your own kids, and then you go, hold on, I'm sending them to someone else for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, depending on circumstance. It could be,
Mm.
before school, after school care, whatever it might be, and then you're going, oh, hold on, what's the influence that they're going to be having? Because they're mine. They're my little people that I want to be raised a certain way, but there's all this outside influence. So it really shifts your focus on what is important within a classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and every classroom is different, as you know. So it was really interesting. You were talking about you're working at a school with students with additional needs. Have you noticed sort of a shift in your teaching practice since joining that space?
Oh, 100%. I've told so many of my colleagues, it's it's like I'm a new teacher again. I know the only advantage is I know my content and I know what I'm capable of. But as far as classroom practice, there's so much stuff that not only do I have to unlearn, I've got to relearn and go change there's always the start point of any project, and because I teach design and technologies, there's a start point and an end point of a project. Um, and it used to be a reasonably straight line to get there in mainstream schooling. It's not so straight anymore, and it's got dips and curves and bumps, and all of a sudden it's almost like a snakes and ladders. You have to climb that ladder, because if you have to go through the whole path, you'll never get to the end. And then occasionally it'll be a bad day, and you'll slide down the snake and have to work your way up again. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I've got to reevaluate everything I'm doing for the success of the children under my care.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the most rewarding teaching that I've experienced is we set up a group, like an online group tutorial for Ukrainian students in our local area, and we have just 1 hour a week, and we have 8 students, and it is the most exciting, the most enjoyable sort of 1 hour of my week where I get to have all these incredible conversations with these bubbly, enigmatic, excitable young people about the thing I love. So I get to talk about English and literature and language, um, and we share stories, and we learn about each other's narratives, and it's so humbling, but also it it's stepping away from classroom teaching. And I stole this phrase from Mike Lehman, who was a business coach who I worked with as I transitioned out of teaching. Was I left teaching to spend more time on education, and it's not just educating other people, it's educating myself. Selfishly, I want to learn more, and I want to experience more satisfaction in what I do, and I couldn't do that in mainstream education because of all the red tape, all of the hoops
Yeah.
you had to jump through. Every 5 minutes there was a new initiative that needed embedding immediately, like yesterday, and then 5 minutes later it had an update, but then you had to relearn, and it was just all consuming, and I didn't feel like I could give 100% of myself to anyone, not my husband, my children, the school, my students. I was spread so thin and emotionally so drained at the end of every day, always overthinking, oh, what if I said the wrong thing to that person? Did I say the wrong thing? What if this thing? And it was just completely time ill spent, it's so much easier now to actually do what I love. And nobody goes into teaching for the money. They really don't. They don't really go into teaching for the money either. They go into it because they have a real heart for people and a real heart for education. And they want to make a difference. And um yeah, so I think I would just recommend, exploring opportunities for teachers who are scared to step outside of the classroom because of the support that they have. They have, the pension's great, they have great sickness cover, they have all of the whatever's
Security.
great about teaching. The security, that's the word I was looking for. But but is it really worth it when it comes to the limited amount of time that you actually have while your children are little, and not wanting to just kind of walk away from you and tell you that you're not cool, and not, as you'll know, that you've got grown up children.
Yeah.
They must be that they reach a point where they're like, Dad, go away, drop me off down the road, or
Yeah.
you drop
100%.
me off around the corner so I'm not seen with you. Whereas my little ones, I've got Ollie, my 3-year-old. He can't say fluffy. He says fluffly. So he has a fluffy hoodie that he wears to bed because he can't keep a cover on, and it's
Yeah.
got little bear ears. And at 11 minutes past 4 this morning, I had this little bear trotting, like walking over to my bed, and he goes, Mummy, I can't find my Spider-Man shoes. And I was like, it's 4 a.m. What are you doing?
Yeah. And
But I found it hilarious. I was like, that's great, let's go find them. If I had work today, like proper work, like in a classroom where I had to be in front of 30 kids for 6 hours in a day, I don't feel I'd be quite as empathetic, or, um, have as much time for my 3-year-old at 11 minutes past 4 in the morning.
yeah.
But I'm a
And
better mum because of that.
yeah, and that's the key thing. It's just like and I love that line, you gave up teaching for education. Like that's just amazing. And it's you're investing that time in obviously others, and your passion is there, and that's, I think that's critical with any type of whether it's tutoring, lecturing, teaching in a classroom, whatever you're doing. If there's a passion in there, the students, the children under our care, even in adult education, the adults that we're that are being trained, when they see the passion, they tend to bite down just that little bit harder to go, yeah, I want to get into this. And then, like with, you have that time at home. Like I remember a story, a little story that I had when I had my kids, and, they were in school while I was very fortunate with the timing that we had kids, and I was studying, and then I was started teaching. And we were driving around one day. Well, it was when we were in Sydney. We were just driving into the city, and we drove past a school, and it was school holidays, and there's all the kids running around in, their high vis t-shirts, and their little hats to obviously keep them, we can spot them wherever. And
Yeah,
the kids are like, why are they at school? It's holidays. And I said, well, it's
yeah.
vacation care. And they're like, but why isn't their dad at home with them? And it was a realization then of how
Oh,
blessed and fortunate I am, that I had this opportunity, um, to spend extended amounts of time with my children where other parents didn't. And it's just like, wow, what an opportunity. And whether through circumstance or choice or whatever it is, there's no judgment with that. That's life, especially these days, with the way the world is working with cost of living and the like. Um, Sometimes you just got to. But it was just that I was working, but I had this time, and thankfully they're all, they are grown up now, and but teaching has changed so much. Like you were saying, the demands, the red tape, the accreditation requirements, the class sizes, the needs, the diverse needs of the students in a classroom. And I can't remember the stats for the United Kingdom, but in Australia, it's about one. about 1 in 5, maybe even 1 in 4 now, teachers are out within 3 to 5 years of teaching. And these young teachers just come in with such a passion and a fervour to educate, but the system just,
It breaks them.
yeah, it just beats them up and puts them in a position where they lose that drive and they go, well, I can't do this.
And it breaks my heart. I was writing my thesis. So ironically, the title of my thesis is along the lines of it's very long. I can never remember the entire thing in its entirety, but it's along the lines of considering women's experience of working in education post motherhood. And I've interviewed 6 women from it's intersectional, so very different walks of life, who teach in England in primary or secondary schools, and um, I created composite vignettes, so looking at their experiences and then fictionalizing them, and then analyzing those, and then comparing them, looking at them through Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory or framework, where you look at the micro, the meso, and the macro influences, zones of influence, and how schools are just getting it all wrong. just they're just getting it all wrong. And then I draw on kind of parallels to from Scandinavia and things like Denmark and Finland and Sweden, where they have up to a year paternity leave for dads, or they have in one of my previous places of work, if my child was sick, I would only be able to be paid for one day, and then I would have to find alternative care for my child. Otherwise, it would be paid, unpaid leave.
Yeah.
And things like I was 6 months pregnant or 7 months pregnant with my second son. This was post COVID, and I was due to go in for a growth scan because I was presenting small. He was actually huge, but that's by the by. Um, but I was told that it was imperative that I attend the teacher training on the inset day and to rearrange my baby's growth scan. I was like, so I did. And then I had like the whole day, I was sitting with this guilt of, oh my goodness, what if there's something wrong with my baby? I'm not going to know. I've got another sleepless night. And then at the end of the inset training, the head teacher said, oh, don't worry. If you weren't able to attend, this was all recorded. So if you can catch up with it before. And I was like, oh, what are you
Oh,
doing? What are you doing?
yeah, and that's just salt on the wound, isn't it?
And it was just like, what?
Yeah,
Oh,
and
but they
it's
were following policy. They were following the rules. It's like,
yeah,
yeah,
it's one of those things that schools tend to do without actually thinking, and again, it's that lens of, okay, here's the school, and stereo, stereo, a stereotype is that some of these people who are in position, executive positions often, either don't have children because they've spent so much time in leadership,
yes.
or that they're and they love it, but their life is the school, and then so they don't have that perspective of what it meant. And I had colleagues who were like, I would take days off because my kids were sick or my wife was sick, and it's just like work is a very distant second. My students are important, but my family is the one who will be there. Students have a shelf life. My family doesn't. So it's all that sort of stuff. And with education, it's just we want, and like yourself, you've got that heart to give of yourself. And I would say 99 out of 100 teachers have that exact heart and would sacrifice like you did because of whether it's for class or for making sure we're keeping up with CPD and all this sort of stuff, because we want to make sure that we are creating the best opportunities for the students, at the expense of ourselves, and it's a tightrope.
And it's constant, and it's unforgiving, and it's unrelenting, and teacher burnout is too high. It just it's a fact. Teacher burnout is too high
Yeah.
globally. It's not unique to one country or another. It is global. Um, and fortunately, there are so many other opportunities for teachers. The skills that they develop. So I was head of careers in my previous role, as well as head of Key Stage 4 English. But um, the irony was, as head of careers, I was not given any time in my timetable to complete this role. I was only given like a minimal TLR, which is like the like compensation. And anyway, by the by. But I would organize events. So I would organize speakers to come in from big companies, tech companies like Google and Amazon and Microsoft. They'd come in and they would do a presentation, like a Q&A for the students, prospective, scholars of computer science. And the organization skills that I developed in that role are great. Like I can plan an event. Maybe it's even my kids' party with 30 kids and all the cupcakes and all the mulled wine and whatever. But I take it in my stride. I'm really good at planning events. Um, and I didn't realize that I was developing those skills in teaching alongside my classroom practice. So I think it's really interesting when I have conversations with people looking to do. I've done some coaching of people like transitioning out of teaching
Yeah.
because I've done teacher training and I've got a tutor on my team who is like a trainee tutor, so I'm teacher training her and doing tutoring. But when I have conversations with these people, all they just say, "But I don't know how to do anything other than teach. I know English and I know how like kids, but I don't what can I do? I only know how to apply for teaching jobs on the Times Education Supplement website, like the TES website. Like I don't know what else can I do."
Yeah.
And it's like, no, think about all of those communication skills that you have. You can present, you can put on a face, you can, you put on a show basically 6 hours a day.
Yeah. Evaluate
You
people
can,
and their performance. Put it down in a coherent, non or not too judgmental way that it communicates so many things. And yeah, it's amazing.
it's
I actually,
amazing.
yeah, I did an exercise of that, of like, what can I actually do? Because I'm a teacher, and all I do, I teach kids, and what else? And then we broke it down to the skill set that most teachers have of dealing with stakeholders, um, dealing with time constraints, and often unrealistic time constraints, constantly, um, being able to pivot at a moment's notice, being able to restructure your whole day because something's gone on, and there's a whole range of things and that teachers can do that they don't. Again, they don't see the value that they bring. Um, and so on that, so you've been in schools and you're doing this tutoring now, and we're talking about teacher burnout, and we're talking about how we don't have the time. Do you think we're sort of at a point where I know there's a lot of online schools which are working really well. There's a lot of other schools where they're non-traditional schools. They're you talked about some of the uh, in Finland and Denmark and some of the amazing things that they're able to do because of the autonomy that the schools trust. They trust the teachers. So you go and do this, and you've got tutoring companies. Do you think we're at a point in time where traditional schooling like the cracks are really starting to open up? Like it's sort of always been held together with a bit of sticky tape and wire, but now it's gotten to that point where, and I think COVID, to a certain extent, has sped up that process, because people realise that hold on, I don't need to be at school for 6 hours. I can do 3 hours at school, and get it done, and then I can go on and I'm going to start a business, or I'm going to learn music, or I'm going to do this, and all of a sudden, this time that was chewed up is now so much more effective.
Absolutely. And I've seen some really exciting initiatives from some schools. There was a school that I worked at for a little while who piloted a later start for older students. So they wouldn't start school until 11:30 a.m. and then I think they'd be at school until 6 or 6:30, and then they'd have dinner. But shifting the school day more in line with their neurodevelopment and their um um I can't remember the word, where their system, like the chrono system, their system is more aligned,
Yep.
they got better results. Um, and then I've also seen uh, things like the online schools. They're doing an amazing job, but the and I think you're right, the cracks are starting to show. People are seeing that if you follow the rules and you pass the exams, you will get a job working for somebody else, making somebody else money. You'll do fine. But but we're not in the sort of society where somebody does that and then does the same job for 30 to 40 years. Nobody does that anymore.
No.
It's the education system as it stands was built on teaching people how to follow instructions and to sit down, be quiet, not ask questions, do as you're told, be seen and not heard, do your job, do it well, go home, crack on. But then it's those people who are disrupting the system, it's the disruptors who are making all the money. And it's the disruptors who are teaching people how to break out of that system and be successful. So, but they're getting all the glory. So why are we still teaching young people to sit in rows, listen to one person talk for 55 minutes, force them to read, track their reading, and they get points based on the amount of words they read per minute, in certain systems that I strongly disassociated with. But you're just taking all of the love out of learning. Eddie this morning was having a bit of a meltdown, and we do use TV too much as like a digital babysitter. My husband and I are busy. We had loads to do. Park them in front of Peppa Pig for an hour, get some paperwork done. My son trying to get his shoes on this morning, absolute nightmare, not fun at all. Screaming at me, throwing his shoe on the floor. As soon as we got outside to walk 1.5 kilometers to his school, he just started singing. He started singing. He started having a chat with me about the fact that who was his best friend yesterday is no longer his best friend, but it's okay because he found a really, really good acorn with a really perfectly sized hat that he then gave to that person. They're friends again, it's fine. And then he was telling me, and then he was telling me about how he had a dream about a mega minion. And I was like, and he was just so happy. And he was like, Mummy, can I hold your hand? I was like, yeah. So you look at the child in the classroom, you force them to wear a tie and like starched shirt from the age of 4, and then you take them out of the classroom. My youngest son is a little bit more, he's a little less adverse to the elements, and I've got a beautiful photo of him at about 2, and we were walking around a country park, and he had a rain suit on from head to toe. He was in waterproofs. Obviously, he took it off, but he couldn't get it over his shoes. So he sat down in a puddle and
As
put
they
his head back. He leant back, and then his hair was in the puddle, and he loved it. He was like, "This is great." So he was rolling around in this muddy puddle, and I was like, "Right." But he was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
And I think when you take a child out of the traditional learning environment, they learn so much more, and it is beautiful to watch. So no, absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, and I think, and that story you just shared then is exactly what, and it's one of the joys that I have is, I've got to teach certain things, but my my upline have gone, we want them to experience stuff, we want them to try things, and I've always been very much, let's create a safe space to fail, because in failure is where we learn. Now, your young lad laying in, a puddle, all of a sudden he'll get up and go, geez, I'm a bit cold now. Maybe I shouldn't have laid in the
It's
puddle
really
for
cold.
yeah, maybe I shouldn't have laid in the puddle for so long. But if you had have sat him down and gone, if you lay in water and you're outside, you're going to get cold. Yes, he might go, "Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense." But the learning happens through the experience, and
Absolutely.
you can't replicate that anywhere. You can't. And when you sit them in front of the TV, and we all do it. I've done it, and it's just sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Mhm.
But then you take them outside, or you turn the telly off, and you go and play. And a big thing for me is like, I'm bored. What you've got blocks, you've got colouring in, you've got this, you've got
Yeah.
you can go. We're in Australia. You can go outside any time of the year. Just get
Just watch
outside.
out for the snakes and the large bugs. Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's just like, get outside and all that sort of stuff, and it's in that point. And I think society and schools as well have aren't allowing children to become bored, because once they're bored, it just fires that part of the brain that all of a sudden creativity kicks in and imagination kicks in, and they just get this drive, and and then you can't stop them, because they get locked into something, and it's that experience of their learning.
And I think what schools are a little bit afraid of is that the same applies to teachers. You take somebody like me who was really good at following instructions and doing everything by the book. I was great at what I did, but I just got so bored, and I feel like I outgrew the system a little bit. I wanted something more. I wanted to do more. And now, almost to my detriment, you can't stop me. I rolled my ankle last week in Corfu with a family holiday. My friends love to uh, mock me because I can climb a mountain and run a marathon, but I can't walk along a street, which is a fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah, but you're doing things, you're experiencing things, and you're out there, and it's hard to imagine that where it went and why it went wrong. I mean, schools were there to help and to there was the utilitarian thing that schools were there for, but there was also, hey, we've got to help better. So like, if they're doing this, then this can happen, and this can happen. And then we can get here, and we can build a car and a train and a plane, and
Mm.
boom, you're going from Surrey or Kent to Corfu, and having a grand holiday. But if we didn't have that exploration and that creative drive and that wanting to experience and build and fail and fail and fail until we hit success, and they're the disruptors. Like, I was a troublemaker at school. I was a terrible
It
student.
was all the tattoos, wasn't it? It was.
Oh, they came when I finally had some money. So,
Oh,
um,
fair.
but I was that student, but I was misbehaving, and I can look back now. I was misbehaving because I was a little bit bored, a little bit of mostly a teenage boy, but also it's like, what is the application of what you're teaching me? Why is this important to me? And yeah, there are some things that you just got to learn because you got to learn them because you got to learn them. But it's like, well, tell me why I've got to learn this boring stuff, but tell me where maybe one day it could be applicable. And when I went, I wasn't always a teacher. I went and did a trade first. And so I went to trade college, and, working 5 days a week, going to college 1 day a week. And it was not until I got in there that I went from a very low level of maths, because I was a ratbag and a troublemaker and it didn't make sense, to then doing the trade mathematics, where I'm learning about physics and levers and material science and all this stuff that, to be honest, I was told I was too dumb to do. But, over a summer break, all of a sudden I'm doing it, so it's, everyone has the opportunity to learn, regardless of circumstance. And I'm seeing that now. Some of the kids that I deal with on a daily basis, they're written off by 90% of people. But I had, the other day I was doing cooking with some year 7 students. So they're 12, 11 or 12, maybe 13, and one of them, he is an amazing coder. Like, he gets it. His brain just runs with it. And I'm just like, he's not following my instructions. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And it's like, all right, he loves coding. So I broke it down to go, hey, a recipe is like a code. Like, if I want this good tasting outcome, I've got to do all my steps. And he's like looking at me like, you're a weirdo. But I said, no. I said, look, think about it. So we've got to cut the chicken in the right way. Then we've got to carefully flour it. Then we just dip it in the egg. We don't splash around. And then we dip it in the crumbs, and then we can put it on the tray neatly. I said, each one of those is a line. And if you do them correctly, you're going to get a good outcome. If you choose not to, it's not going to work and it's going to taste horrible. And he just, all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, it took him a little bit of, a minute or two to process what I said. And then all of a sudden, his whole, the way he did things, everything changed. So it's like, oh, that makes sense to me. All right, bang, bang, bang. And he did it. So it's
And
just,
it's amazing that you had that opportunity to do that one-to-one like interaction. When I had 30 children in a class, there's no chance.
no, you can't do it.
And in tutoring, that's another thing that I love is that you get to really connect with your students. I learned about, I've got quite a lot of students who are that I see in the UK who in person who are Hong Kong expats. Um, and I've learned so much about K-pop this week. It's unreal. Like, this is the sort of thing that you just can't learn on the internet. This has got to do. But you build that connection. I have a lot of kind of teenage boys similar to yourself, no doubt, that I work with who trying to teach them how to create a simple sentence with a noun and a verb in it. It's not going to happen. So I break it down almost algebraically. So I have in brackets n plus v, close brackets, full stop, um, and that's because it taps into that kind of science mathematical brain. They're like, oh, is that it? I was like,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And we have like things like the 1, 2, 3 rule, where the students have to use a variety of sentence types and lengths to create a crafted piece of writing. But when you show the students that they can achieve, you break the kind of the big, oh my God, I've got to write an essay, down to kind of really manageable chunks, and you show them like examples. I follow the I do, we do, you do kind of scheme. It's a Rosenshine principle, but so I do the thing first, and then I scaffold how they should do the thing. Then we do the thing together, and then they have a go at doing that independently. So it's that modeling and that constant, making them feel slightly out of their comfort zone, but not so far that they disengage.
Yeah.
And that works beautifully. And I know it's pedagogically sound, but also I see it works. It doesn't work with 30 in a room unless they're sitting there silently copying off the board, but it does work one-to-one. And that's what I mean when I say I left teaching to spend more time on education. I can actually teach now, not just kind of referee. So
Yeah.
it's great, but it's, yeah. So I would strongly recommend investigating even like small group tutoring opportunities. As I say, we have the Ukrainian group where we've got 8 students. That works beautifully. It's much smaller than a mainstream class. And Edify, we're not trying to put anybody else down. We're trying to celebrate what everybody else is doing, and then also kind of create the blueprint to empower other people to kind of join the movement of putting the onus on safeguarding, putting the onus on putting joy back into education, for a lot of people who have switched off to education in the classroom setting. So that's where we're going.
That's amazing. And it's just, I can see the joy and I can hear the joy that you bring, and the passion that you bring to education. And it's great to hear it. And that's, one of the reasons why I do this podcast, is to get those great things out there, that teachers you are valued, you are important, you are precious. So if it's not, there's other ways you can stay in education without being in a school. You,
100%. That applies to both students and teachers.
oh,
Call
yeah.
me controversial, but
And that's what we need these days, because we need.
disruptors are the people who we pay their bills. So
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this time has just flown by, and I'm
Hasn't
sure
it? Hasn't
we,
it?
we could continue probably for a little bit longer. But your time is precious. You have your little cherubs, and they're off at school, and one of them's probably running around somewhere. But um, before we wrap up, where can people find out more about your tutoring business or get in contact with you? And maybe some people actually want to be tutored by you. You tutor worldwide, which is amazing. So how would we find out more about you, Rachel?
We have a very dynamic website that doesn't earn us any money, but it's a lovely, pretty platform shop window, which is www.edify empower tutoring.co.uk. And we've closed applications between now and the 3rd of January, but our new cohort will take on more students. As of that point, we have a waiting list, which I'll share the link to. And yes, so we have the website, we have that. If you're a tutor and you're looking to kind of develop your CPD access, we're partnering with Hayes, which is an education training provider, to enable our tutors to access CPD. And we're members of the Tutors Association, so any tutor who is affiliated with us can apply for a DBS for free. So that's also a benefit of us. But we would love to hear from people who have that kind of similar mindset for innovation and creativity, but also with a real heart for safeguarding. Please get in
Yeah,
touch.
absolutely. I'll make sure those go all in the show notes as well. Um,
Thank you.
and look, it wouldn't be the tattoo teacher without asking you, Rachel, do you have any tattoos?
I used to. So I used to have a tattoo
You're
on
the
my
first person
ankle.
who has said that. That's the first time I've had that answer. So,
Ah, so I used to have a tattoo on my ankle. It was about this long, and it said Wanderlust, which is the uncontrollable urge to travel, which I thought was really cool and meaningful when I was about 21. And then I started getting it lasered and to get it removed because I was like, that's really cringe. But I don't know if you've ever had a tattoo lasered, but it disappears in parts. So at one point it said Wonder Bra, which I think is like serious like brand affiliation. So and now it just looks like an awkward bruise. So yeah, so that's in answer to your question. I used to.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's the first one I've had. Yes, I've had no. I've had people playing with tattoos, but I've never had one. I used to, and it used to
I
say
used
one
to, and
love,
it used to
love
say Wonder Bra. Yeah,
to a bruise.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So thanks for having me.
That's awesome. And what a fun conversation, Rachel. It's been a joy and a pleasure to chat with you tonight for me, this morning for you, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a. I'm not sure when this will go out, but hopefully it'll go out before this. So have a Merry Christmas. Um,
Thank you. You too.
and all the very best for the new year, and like to have a waiting list at this time of year is like that's fantastic. So all the very best, and we'll talk again very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.